My name is Cheryl Shindrick, and I'm Chair of the Arts and Programming Committee for the Canada-Ireland Foundation. On behalf of our Chair and the Board and staff of the Foundation, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Imbolc 2025. Celebrated on February 1st, Imbolc is, or also known as St. Bridget's Day, is a Gaelic festival that marks the beginning of spring and the feast day of St. Bridget, Ireland's patroness saint. Since 2023, the day has become a yearly public holiday in the Republic of Ireland to mark the saint's feast day and the seasonal festival. One of the various traditions during this day is the celebration of the contributions of Irish women past and present. Imbolc is part of our Canada-Ireland Talks series, held on an annual basis and made possible by donors like you. If you feel inclined to donate any small amount to help support us, you can find the donate page on our website at CanadaIrelandFoundation.com. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are pleased to gather this evening with people residing in different parts of the world, including across Canada and Ireland. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Toronto area, where the Canada-Ireland Foundation operates, is the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Before we hear from our speakers, I want to let you know that we will be hosting a Q&A through the chat function on this platform. So please, throughout the evening, send us your comments and questions. Our speakers will see the questions and they will be able to respond to them over the course of the evening. We are scheduled to be together for 1 hour, so I would just ask you to bear that in mind as you send us your thoughts. So we are delighted this evening to have with us Lindsay Peat, a celebrated multi-sport athlete known for her achievements in association with football, basketball, Gaelic football, and rugby union. She represented Ireland in football at the U18 level, captained the Irish national basketball team to multiple titles, won an All-Ireland Gaelic football title with Dublin, and earned 38 caps for Ireland in rugby, including competing in the 2017 Women's Rugby World Cup. Off the field, Lindsay is a mom, an advocate for LGBTQ plus rights, and is ranked among Ireland's most influential women in sports. Welcome, Lindsay. And Lindsay is going to be in conversation this evening with Megan Lawton. And Megan is a freelance presenter and reporter for the BBC, presenting stories from her base here in Toronto, Canada. At BBC World Service, she hosts programs and reports on topics that offers listeners fresh perspectives on stories that are shaping the world. Before calling Canada home, Megan was the entertainment reporter for BBC Radio 1, where she sat down with some of the biggest names in pop culture and sport, delivering exclusive interviews. So with that, welcome Lindsay and welcome Megan, and we look forward to your conversation.
Thank you for the introduction, Cheryl, and to the Canada-Ireland Foundation for hosting us for this conversation. Lindsay, I'm super excited. There's so much I want to speak to you about. As Cheryl said there, Imbolc marks that point we've all been waiting for when we're closer to spring than we are the winter solstice. And I'm intrigued to know that on a cold winter night, when you know you've got to get up early the next day to be often on a cold, damp pitch and wet conditions, what is your drive that's getting you up there every morning?
Well, Ihava, that's good evening in Irish. Everybody has joined us. Really excited tonight, Megan, to chat to you, and a huge thank you again to the Canada-Ireland Foundation for having us. what motivates us, I suppose, as an Irish nation, we're a very small country that really punches above our weight, and no more so, I suppose, in the female side of the sporting world. We're ever evolving and we want to grow. And I suppose it came actually, funny enough, from a coach way back in basketball. He did a huge influence on my career, Mark Ingle. So I was a bit of a delinquent, underage, and I was a bit wild, which was unusual for a first child. But my mother, anyway, threw me into sports. That's how I got into it. But usually around in Ireland, basketball isn't obviously our primary sport. We're quite a short nation, so we don't keep up with the likes of Canada or France or the UK or these top nations who, obviously are top of the world rankings. But anyway, every January is our big season, where the spotlight shines on Irish basketball. It's a big cup month. So anyway, it was the only time really some of the national media papers would be throwing focus on us. And someone asked, would they interview me? So this came through Mark, my coach, and I said, Mark, I can't talk about that. Like, I wouldn't be able to, like, I'd be so embarrassed. I can't, I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't have the confidence. And he said to me, Lindsay, you have to remember that this is such a short window for the game of basketball, and not only the game of basketball, but the female side of the game. Like, so you have to take this opportunity, because you're not only representing yourself, you're also representing the sport you want to grow. And that has stuck with me ever since, that, if you get an opportunity to speak or to showcase, or someone takes an interest in you, like, you're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for that little girl or that young boy who might spot you and want to take up basketball, or might be just having a tough time and wants to try out sport, just even make some friends. And yeah, that resonated with me ever since. And I suppose I took on bigger challenges and tougher conversations and all of that. But as well as that, anytime I was in a jersey, especially with my journey with rugby, I was very new to it. I was very raw. We wanted to be better. We were having a home World Cup. They were all motivating factors that you wanted to contribute or pour into this jersey, something more positive. You wanted to bring it somewhere better than it was in the place before. So I suppose there was no need for motivation. Like, I was one of I had 38 caps. Some people don't even get to get into a training camp for Ireland. And you have to remember how privileged you are. So we used to do 6 o'clock gym sessions. So the young son at the time, and even before his arrival, you'd absolutely haul your ass out of bed because everyone else was doing it, and you couldn't be the weak chink in that armor, because you had a goal, you had a focus, you had something bigger than yourself. So when you're in those moments, now I look back now, I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, how did I do it? I do not know. I've had this conversation with teammates, because we did it on a very, very amateur level. It's very different now. It was different when I was leaving the setup, when I retired in 21 from international rugby. I still play club rugby, but yeah, there was loads that contributed to my motivation, to be honest. But anytime there's an opportunity of an Irish jersey, or we're very parochial here, I suppose, in a way, even though we have evolved. But like, for my club, for Gaelic football, like, it's about your parish, it's about where that area comes from. Again, that jersey represents that culture, that neighbour that you can knock into for you borrow a pint of milk, or they might throw you a lift somewhere. Like, it's just the camaraderie and the values and everything that's instilled, and it helps grow you as a person. And yeah, there's always a bit of crack along the way.
Yeah, you're selling the 6 a.m. starts to me. If only you've got a team waiting for you on the pitch.
Always fun.
Way before that Irish jersey came along, if we'd have met you as a kid, before you kind of entered your teenage years, would we have met a very competitive little girl, whether it's playing snap with the family? I know you're the eldest of 3 siblings. Has that competition, that drive always been in you?
Yes, it has. But like, I don't know where I get like the love of sport from, because I have 2 younger sisters, both, and my mother's like, honestly, got gone on speed. Like, she's just like a mental, like, that's definitely a competitive streak from, like, if you put her in a sale and there was like one item that she really wanted, it's the last one, like, my money's on my mother. But like, she's into fashion, she's into clothes, she's into connecting with people in that sense. My sisters, one is a nurse, the other one's a teacher. They have played a little bit of basketball. My younger sister is a bit taller than me, she's 5'9". She's a similar build, but the middle sister, we were both 9 pounds plus born, and the middle sister came in at a very light 7 pound odd. So she tried her hand at basketball, but she was quite light. She wasn't physically able for it, even though basketball is meant to be non-contact. So yeah, I remember playing, actually, my dad is one of 11, and his middle sister, the middle, he has around the middle range, if he can work that out. Like his sister's coming third and fourth place at down the pecking order, and one of them, that sister has like 3 boys. And I remember I was actually in my confirmation gear. You in Ireland, you go around when you make your confirmation, you see everyone. And I'm there playing out their back garden, playing soccer with their boys, and their uncle's like, oh, saying to my dad, who again not into sports at all, he's into motorbike, he's into fixing motorbikes, vintage stuff, and he said, oh, she's got something there, she's competitive, and I'm like upending his sons, like, so he was pretty proud. But he's like, obviously there's no bloodline with him, but he came from League of Ireland, he played very top level under 20s rugby, so it was lovely to connect with him and his sons on the sporting stage, I suppose, as well. And they were able to feed my competitive streak instead of me bashing my sisters at the back garden or bringing them out playing football. So it was nice. But yeah, I'm still competitive now. I don't let my son win. I don't let my nephews win. We play Gruffalo snaps. So the odd time I might let them maybe win one round, but that's about it. I make sure I'm champion by the end. It's terrible, isn't it?
No, you're giving them a taste of what it's like to win and then making them work harder. There's a parenting skill, there's a parenting tactic in there somewhere.
I'm building resilience, isn't that what they call it?
I know you've spoken about in the early days of your career with basketball, with football, that you had a feeling of imposter syndrome, which is crazy to think now, given all you've gone on to achieve. How did that manifest within you, and how did you work to kind of conceal that so other players didn't see that you had that on the pitch?
I suppose we know our deepest, darkest secrets internally, don't we? Like, we know our weaknesses, and I suppose an even issue now would be self-belief and confidence. I thrive better on being the underdog. That's really how I built my career, my competitiveness, and it was always something that ignited in me that I kept telling myself, which is really the wrong. I want to reiterate that it's a wrong message to feed yourself, because it's really hard then to not even a word, but like, if it's embedded in your brain, you have to undo all that negativity, even though it had a positive effect necessarily. But yeah, I kept telling myself I wasn't good enough, even when I went through a really tough personal time. And that happens, everyone just transitioning from kind of secondary school or high school, maybe some of the Canadians might refer to it as, into college. I struggled with sexuality, I struggled with my place in life, I put on a lot of weight. And even when I decided to lose the weight, I was fairly skillful, but like, I wasn't going to we eventually had been promoted to the top level of club basketball, and I really wanted this was the epitome of the career you wanted to play for that. And the next step was Ireland. I missed out on a lot of underage opportunities because I was just really wild and I couldn't settle down, and opportunities missed. But even losing, I lost 5 stone. Don't ask me what that is in pounds. If you want to convert it, you'll have to ask Google. But 5 stone is a pretty hefty amount, and all I kept telling myself is, I suppose the negativity people would say about me, suppose I did call myself fat, you're not able to do this, you're fat so and so, and this was internally me telling myself to motivate myself and prove people wrong. And as I said, it was the negative voices that I created, I was able to withstand that and build that up, but that was the motivation. But it was the wrong message to be giving myself. So it's not something I'd recommend to young athletes now, or even people in any way of life, like, because it still sits with me, and you have to remind yourself. And even now, 44, whether it's a job interview or even today for the first time being back on a show, just commentating on the rugby over the weekend, you come out of that. I suppose, maybe yourself, even you go through, when you're doing it regularly, you build up your confidence and you can make tweaks and you can make changes. No more than a match, you review your performance and you can build it in. But when you're out of the game a little while, you again question yourself, am I good enough? And even tonight, I did okay, but I could have done a lot better. I stuttered on words. But look, that's life, and you have to, we talk about growth mindset, but you have to be able to look at yourself. But yeah, the imposter syndrome was tough, because there was also people looking at me and putting me up on this, I suppose, pedestal. Like, I'd lost the 5 stone, I had really changed. People didn't like me. I was wild, and fairly aggressive, with a really bad temper. So I had a bad label. Like, people knew a reputation for the wrong reasons. And funny enough, when I lost the weight, I got so much positive feedback from other teams who used to antagonize me, get me sent off. Now, that was up for me to control, but they did their job really well. Like, I was an easy target, and I really bowed down to their tactics of that. And then when they were giving me compliments on how well I looked and how fit I was, I kind of for the first time realized that my behavior and how I act actually impact people, and they take notice of that. And that brought huge positivity. But then the more I grew, the more pressure was on, I suppose, and the more expectation. And this is where the imposter syndrome comes. That like people were coming to me with a very different, looking for advice or giving me compliments that I wasn't used to. And yeah, that self-belief wasn't there. Like I had absolutely perfected a resting bitch face. It was really aggressive. I was probably very insecure, but had this really, I'm sure, a front that I still probably people know now that it just had, I was like a brick wall, so nothing could harm me. But inside, I like, yeah, riddled with self-doubt, and it was just all a front. I can actually smile now, and actually, I'm probably enjoying my rugby more than ever. You know, I'm playing number 8, playing a lot of minutes, getting started, and to be a 44-year-old playing with a lot of 20-something-year-olds, you know, it keeps me young, it keeps me motivated. But it's also for a bigger picture, and it's to give back and to remember that I once was that delinquent 20-odd-year-old who had a lot of people believe in me and got me through and shaped me as a person, and could have given up on me and they didn't. So yeah, the imposter syndrome took a lot of getting used to. But I've lived experiences, and I have to remember that, and all I can do is offer those to people, and you know, they are real, and I always try and be real. You know, my bad language sometimes comes out. I can't be that real all the time, but there you go.
No,
I hope
that's
that
part of the authenticity, right?
yeah, it's part of the Irish charm, I'm sure. But yeah, look, it's been a life lesson, and sport has brought me on a journey of self-discovery, and that sounds fluffy, but it really has. And we think we spoke before, you know, having a quick chat before we started tonight, and you know, we do speak about the resilience and the growth mindset, and until you put yourself out of your comfort zone, and I really did with sport. But I've been able to remind myself that I need to put myself out of my comfort zone in real life if I want to get anywhere. And it actually kicks in that adrenaline and that self-achievement. And you have to fail to be better, and you have to lose to win. And they're all, yeah, skills I developed through sport, but hopefully it brought me into life outside of the sporting arena.
Yeah, it's no surprise to hear you say that now you still seek putting yourself out of your comfort zone when your whole career is based upon you sort of step foot on a pitch, never really knowing what the outcome is going to be. And always, again, sort of, I guess there's always an element of being outside of your comfort zone. From a non-athlete to a sporting champion, is it the case that you almost have two personas? You have your on the pitch self and your off the pitch self. And if so, I'm interested to know what you learned from who you were on the pitch.
So I suppose on the pitch initially was this, you know, I suppose I always looked at sport and these big events going to war, you know, and I had to be a soldier and I had to lead and I had to be, you know, I couldn't show any emotion. And that was probably, again, if that's one learning to take away, that actually people buy into the person you are, not necessarily the warrior, because not everyone actually functions the way I do. And I'd rather come off a pitch dying with an arm hanging off than be too scared to actually perform at all. But how I see that or view that isn't actually, so many people I've played with, probably much more skillful. I don't mean probably, actually more skillful than I ever was, struggle with their nerves. And I probably didn't take enough time to just give them a hug or put a reassuring arm around them. And I would hope that I've done that now. And they're probably regrets that I've had before, looking back. And again, I can actually smile and not worry about things like you're saying about the unknown there. But I actually had, for a long time, had to have so much control out of what was my regime before I went onto a pitch. Like I'd be giving out to people if they turned over the ball. Well, maybe I gave a shitty pass. Like, you know, not everyone goes out there to make a mistake. And, you know, I compounded that. And I remember one final that, you know, people were laughing and so relaxed, but I was so intense. So I was giving out to them for laughing. And sure, they were so relaxed. So I think I turned the whole tide of that and put them under so much pressure to perform that they actually froze. And some of my best performances were actually the days I actually didn't give an absolute crap whether we won, lost or draw. I'd gone through so much heartache losing, which is a collective, like it's not an individual thing. Some days you win, some days you lose. but I put so much pressure on it. It was actually so unenjoyable. So the days I didn't actually give a damn whether we won or lost, were the days I could actually smile and probably top scored and got MVP, and we finally brought home a cup. That was the irony, the whole thing, and the self-realization that actually, if you're just a little bit chill, and you'll bring other people into the game and they'll enjoy it more. So I've learned to bring a bit of I didn't show anybody I didn't let them in. You know, I probably still struggle to let people in. I love cuddles. I'm very soft. I love animals. If someone's hurt an animal, I cry. I probably for a long time told people I didn't cry. I didn't cry enough because I switched it off. But then your son comes along and you melt, you know. So now I still cry at the national anthem. Like, sport is kind of the rom-com for me, and I'm kind of that does get me. But yeah, again, it's just a development to me as a person, and unlocking that, you know, heart, or showing people that, you know, I do have a heart. Like, I'm not a character of Wizard of Oz looking to find one, you know. So yeah, I suppose the turning point as well was my son. Like, I fell in love with him the moment I saw him. Love of my life now. And I don't know whether anyone knows that we had a great player at Leinster, Easton Asewa, and he's spent a long time here. So that's our provincial rugby, well, club rugby, but to be on a big club stage. And he had a great quote that really hit home. And he said, you know what, kids really ground you, because win, lose, or draw, like, they don't care. They just want you to come home and give a big hug and a kiss. And when you come back into your kid's life, they just want you to play with them. And like, life is precious. So took me a long time to realize that. I've retained a lot of friends who I probably absolutely scathed, and they're the good people that, as I said, got me through and dragged me. And I'm very grateful for the people who stuck by me. And I've met a lot of wonderful people. I'm not so wonderful, but they've been wonderful people who got me through. But I suppose that's the other side. I think that you can be the warrior, but if you're the good person who fights for whether it's better rights or other people to be seen, that, you know, great for you to be seen, but you have to recognize that there's other people not seeing, whether that's the sport, or talk about LGBTQ plus, or even female equality, whatever the fight may be. You have to remember that there's a person beside all those, and you have to be personal. So you had to unlock all of that to be that better person. So yeah, it's been, as I said, it's been an eye-opener. It's been definitely a journey of self-discovery. And I'm very different now to the delinquent teenager that was kicked out of gyms for training, and, you know, so competitive that I made a lot of training sessions unenjoyable.
Yeah, maybe it's about, you mentioned the delinquent stage of your life, and then you had the soldier stage of your life where everything was a battle and you were at war. And now you, like you say, you kind of tapped into a more emotional side of you, that you're like, yes, sport is important to me, but there's loads of other important stuff going on.
Yeah, it's been, do you know what, sport has been, I suppose it's a great conduit. It's a great way of bringing people together, and regardless of your socio-economic background, regardless of your religion, regardless of your sexuality, that you come together for this one jersey, for this one crest over your heart, and you all have the same goals. And like, sport for me is so powerful. If even we were to look at South Africa, the apartheid, how it's brought that country together, how they still thrive. Even in Ireland itself, Republic in the North, like, the one sport is rugby, and I got to understand a lot of people from Northern Ireland, from the different side of the fence. Now, I'm not religious, but it's an understanding of their history and where they've came from. But again, we come together under one jersey from very different backgrounds, and backgrounds who probably were at war, and, you know, a lot of heartache over the years. But it was lovely to yeah, as I said, chat to people who are Protestant and who only grew up with rugby and who have no understanding of Gaelic games. But, you know, Niamh Jones plays in the Premiership. She's Irish. She's played for Gloucester, and she took up GAA, and she would be from a Protestant background. And that's what I mean. The power of sport is huge, and I've seen that firsthand, and I've been involved in that firsthand. And my mantra is sport is for everyone. I was very privileged to play at an elite level. But even if that's going out, like doing ice hockey or ice skating or dancing or something that just gets your heart racing and it puts a smile on your face and brings new friends to your life, then that's always going to be a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2019, you were unveiled as the ambassador for the Union Cup. So, for anyone not familiar, that's an LGBT inclusive rugby tournament. And that year it was held in Dublin. I know in the past your sexuality wasn't something you always felt comfortable discussing. What shifted and made you think, okay, I'm ready to take on an ambassadorship, which is obviously so public facing around something you'd been not so comfortable sharing in the past?
Because I suppose I looked deep in that, I looked deep inside myself and know how badly I felt, how much I suffered with anxiety and building up in my head what other people thought, and that what I didn't want to be rejected. Basically, that's what it came down to. So I thought about all the people who didn't have a voice, who didn't have friends, who didn't have sport and this lovely community that was able to surround you and block you and be a shield to you and let you be who you were, with probably knowing that you were struggling. Um, it did also come on the back of an Israel Folau tweet about, damning homosexuality, and he's entitled to his views, but on a public level and being such like highly rated, highly sought after, highly impressionable professional athlete, that was damning to anybody. And I thought to myself, wow. So someone came to me as well, asked me to do, if I was to write a letter to him, and that I did that. And you're trying to just get to people to see the person, not anything around that's associated with you. So when the guys came to me about being the ambassador, they wanted to really, not only from an LGBT, historically and predominantly a gay men tournament, but it was the first year they actually had a women's tournament, and they wanted to really broaden the topic of inclusivity, and I was doing the women's side of things, and it was an absolutely unbelievable weekend of just sportsmanship, camaraderie, support. We had the likes of Guinness and Vodafone and Bank of Ireland and really big sponsors who invested into it, because it was just basically a carnival family festival day that was brought together through the love of rugby and the love of sport. It rained for most of the week until we hit Thursday, and then the sun came out for the whole weekend and rained as we got the trophy. And my club was very inclusive. They were heavily involved and helped me along with that. We had the team there. We won it. It didn't actually, I didn't care whether we won, lose, lost, or drew, but the fact that we were there, it was my club. And we got to be the first winners on that trophy meant an awful lot for the message we were trying to send. And my director of rugby at the time, John Cronin, was just absolutely fabulous to making sure that him and the club could do everything to bring that along. So, and we've changed, I would hope, what we see in rugby itself, because historically on the men's side of things, there's an inherent masculinity that you have to be this big, strong, straight, heterosexual man to play this sport, and you don't have to be anything but yourself. If you're a skillful rugby player who can bring something to the club, that's all we want, male or female, gay or straight or asexual, whatever your orientation, that's nothing to do with it. You're a good person, and you bring something positive to the club, and that's the message we want to get out. So we had to tackle an awful lot. It was soul searching, but it was also empowering for me to finally deal with maybe demons I'd carried before. But on the back of that, yes, I had to do it myself. I had to look deep within. But the bigger picture was, if I'm feeling this, imagine those who are so lonely and what they're feeling. And if we can get this conversation out there and being an example to say, yeah, I'm up here on some level at international rugby, but I have struggled. I have not been okay with this. And if it helped one person, that was job done. If it helped more than that, that was even better.
Yeah, I guess what it sort of benefits twofold. One, you know that you are helping any young person in Ireland, wherever, who sees a tournament like that and feels that representation, it's powerful. Okay, you have to see it to believe that it can be you, but also very healing for you in the years back. I guess you'd have never have thought it possible, say little Lindsay, to be like, one day you're going to be an ambassador for something that right now you don't feel comfortable with, but in a few years' time you're going to feel comfortable enough to be on a public platform. What was that shift like, reflecting on, I guess, sort of telling little Lindsay what she was going to go on to do?
Probably one of my proudest moments. Little Lindsay looks up and she got that hug and reassurance that she really needed to say, it's okay, just be yourself. It was very important for my son to know that there is an array of amazing people out there with, you know, and families, especially with him having two mummies, you know, and to be okay with that and to have visibility of very, you know, other families who had same-sex parents, and to know that they're out there. And listen, that man has been proud of his family makeup since the day he was born, because we were always that, you know, reassuring him that every family unit is different, whether that's single parents, and that's, you know, some makeups that don't always give him the credit, you know, it's just always, even in forms in school, it was like mommy, daddy, and there's no obviously issue with that, but we weren't including all the dynamics that, you know, even some unfortunate, you know, children are brought up by their grandparents, or, you know, a single grandparent, unfortunately, not unfortunately, you know, unfortunately, they could be fostered or adopted, and they're just surrounded by love. So it was lovely for him to see the celebration, the positivity, the flamboyance of every different personality that makes up life, and especially on the family unit. So yeah, little Lindsay was very proud that she was through the other side, had a beautiful son and family, and I was an integral part of hopefully a great day to bring everyone together, and we all probably, anyone who was struggling had a day where it was just, we were at peace.
Yeah, absolutely. Reflecting on your career, you are a trailblazer in so many ways. You sort of always refuse to be pigeonholed into just one sport. At the time, how was that, kind of being this juggling act between, okay, I'm going to do Gaelic football, I'm going to do basketball, so I've still got the football boots or whatever. How did you find juggling all that? And I guess, did you ever realize what you were doing was sort of out of the ordinary, the fact that you were choosing to put your name to so many sports and not just do them, but do them to the highest level?
No, is the honest answer. Is not till I look back now. And I suppose I looked at my sport absolutely as a privilege, but an opportunity to play at a high level, yes, but to play against different athletes who are at the top of their game. Obviously, I'm a very proud Dublin woman, so that means when I get to play for my county, and again, it's very few people get the honour to do that, you take it. But how I managed to juggle international basketball one summer and play GA and win an All-Ireland, I was helped out once by a helicopter. I might as well throw that out there, Megan, because I know it's going to come down the line. But yeah, a helicopter once helped me juggle that day, because I was playing in our national arena basketball. We played Luxembourg, if memory serves me right, and there was an time overlap. Like, I wouldn't have got it by car down to where we were playing in an All-Ireland quarterfinal, which is obviously we hadn't got by it in a good few years. So yeah, I got a helicopter from one of the hotels. Now, in saying that, when this was suggested, we were actually away in Montenegro, playing one of the rounds over there, and the coach was saying to me, I was like, no, I'm not going to make that match. This was for Dublin. You know, I was telling the Dublin manager I'm not going to be able to make that quarterfinal. I have an Irish basketball match. And he said, you know, he was Donegal. So he said, we'll get you a helicopter. And I was like, yeah. You know, thinking, you know, he's, you know, being funny, Irish, having the crack, pulling the piss out of me. And I was like, yeah, sure. So you kind of nod, you know, knowing that, you know, he's having a bit of crack. And so I'm agreeing to this. And then the week of the games, you know, he said to me, now that helicopter's organised, you'll go straight from the game, we'll pick you up and we'll get you down to Kildare at the time. And I land in by helicopter with the other quarterfinal between Kildare and Cork, and I land right beside where they're warming up, as I am in my basketball gear to run in and get changed into Dublin. So I just had really unbelievable supporting, like, coaching staff. Like, they were able to depend on the week what we had. I might miss Dublin session, I might be in with Ireland at that week. But I really actually don't know at that stage. I was training probably 6 days a week. I was struggling to keep weight on me. Like, I was a very quick point guard. I played half forward, so like we 15 players on a Gaelic pitch. So your job as half forward is to win kickouts. Our pitches are 150 meters, so they're 1.5 times a soccer or rugby pitch. So they're quite big. You know, they're not a little pitch to run around. So, but look, these are all privileges. You know, I could be in a lot worse state. So to be able to have the privilege of juggling 2 sports and then take up rugby at 35 and get 38 international caps between the ages of 35 and just coming up to my 41st birthday was another bizarre milestone, but not many people did it. So yeah, very, very proud.
Yeah, and I love that Mariah Carey moment of you being helicoptered across Dublin to get you to a final on time. That's how you do
Very
it.
diva-esque, wasn't it? Very diva-esque. Sure, look, if you're big time, you have to go by helicopters. I am still absolutely mortified. Like, I tell nobody that, but now it came out in a few bits now. People know, but I try. I won't tell many people because it's ridiculously embarrassing, and I probably would never ever let it happen again.
No, I think that should always be in your T's and C's. If you're going to do any commentary, I'll need a helicopter to get me there.
Says this one. I'm starstruck by everyone. You should be. I'm sure you went to helicopters with a few of your high profile and pop stars before you come over to Toronto.
Not yet, but it's on the career bucket list for sure. I'm
Maybe
not
you could get a double one.
Yes, yeah, I like
That'd be
that.
nice.
We cab share, but in a helicopter.
Yeah.
Our final question before we take some questions from the audience. If we take it back to Imbolc, which is what this chat is all about, I'm so aware that there will be so many women and men who look up to you, but I'm wondering throughout the course of your career, who have been the women who you've looked up to and who you've kind of aspired to be?
I suppose when I was growing up, like, it was funny. I loved sport and I played with two young men. Like, you know, when I moved house, so we moved house when I was 9. My youngest sister was only born, and where we moved to, there was only 2 kids my age, and they were both boys. And I watched boys sport, and so one of my big memories was actually Martina Navratilova for the tennis, because my maternal grandfather, who was an absolute gorgeous man, he loved tennis, he loved athletics, he loved dancing, and he used to be giving out, like, he didn't say much, but he'd be like, "Oh, the footballer is giving out, you know, rolling around, like giving out about a tackle," and he just loved the art of tennis. But I remember that Martina Navratilova just being herself, like, she wasn't pigeonholed, and obviously, you know, she was a gay woman at the time, but I was so young at that stage. I just loved her headband. I just loved her aggression. I just loved her fight. I just loved her skill. And she was probably one of my big role models at the start, because it was the first time I got to see a female, and we had John McEnroe as well, who was on the men's side, and it was kind of expected of him that it was okay for him to be aggressive, and I would never change the world. He's still the fabulous, amazing personality he was, which again was unique for the sport of tennis. But especially on the women's side in the 80s and the early 90s, like, that was also very out of the norm. And I just loved her for that. And then, as I suppose, as the world went on, with like Serena, like the 2 Williams sisters, and again, even now we still hear questions to female athletes, and they put it to men, and memes over it. And but they've probably been some of my earlier role models. Obviously, my mom is amazing. Both of my grandmothers were outside of the norm. Like, my mother's mother was one of the first females of her generation to probably continue working. When it was, you know, a lot of women would have given up or had to legally give up. My mother had to legally give up work when I was born. But her mother, you know, had my grandfather doing the housework. Like, she was again a little internal trailblazer in her own community, because that was not what it was done in that age. Like, you're going back to the, like, 50s, 60s, like in Ireland, that was like never heard of. My paternal grandmother is, you know, had 11 children, was pregnant 14 times. She reared them all on herself. So I come from a family of very, very strong women, who I was very privileged to look up to. So I'd obviously, one's close to home, and then some on the sporting field. So again, there's just a lovely, eloquent way about them. They just never, as I said, they never stuck to the norm. They're just for themselves. And I think if I've any message to give today, it's hard. It's hard in today's society. It's hard when it's social media. It's hard even as just even a female to see what's expected if you were to look at all these posters. And I love now that there's even advertising has evolved to make sure that we've all shapes and sizes, you know, being shown. Because, like, I was probably, even throughout my career, when I was at my fittest, I'd say my body fat was well under 20%, but I still am big boned. I still, at my lightest, was 79 kg. I was never fitting into a 10, you know, and yet I was the fittest athlete probably at that time. Very few would have rivaled me, but yet I was, you know, you couldn't fit in. So yeah, it's lovely to see evolution. It's lovely to see so many role models. I still have them now, like, you know, there's players I've played with, and players who went before me that were also role models to me and passed on so much. Like I served under many great captains, but one would have been with Dublin and one would have been with my club DCU Mercy, another one I co-captained with Ireland. And again, humble, skillful. The two that I first mentioned were probably actually the least, not as skilled as some of the players we had, but like leaders are leaders because they make selfless decisions, and they were two of those leaders. They put everyone else first before them, and that was one thing I noticed about them. Like, they were amazing leaders for those reasons. Like, the team was always first. So yeah, it was privilege, lots, and this is a great celebration to recognise, you know, our patron saint, and it brings such a revival. And we have to remember, life is always about, no matter how hard it is, there's always that turning point where you can, you know, breathe again and spark into new life.
Absolutely, you're living proof of that. Are there any, if we think of like the game right now, whether that's rugby, basketball, whose careers should we be following? Who's exciting and, again, sort of trailblazing in this generation?
God, there's so many. Like, we'll come up now to rugby at the moment. Obviously, we're in the men's Six Nations, but the women's Six Nations kick off in March, and our girls are home to France. So we've a lot of our sevens back who would, you know, they were in the Olympics last year. They said, you know, that's the first time our women's sevens have gone to Olympics. So they've set a record with that, and we missed out in the 2019. Well, it was 2019, and then obviously with COVID 2021 World Cup, and now we're going to be playing in England. So that was another milestone to reach there. But we've the likes of Cleena Maloney, Niamh Jones, Liddell McMahon is one of the co-captains, along with Sam Monaghan. Aoife Wafer has been, she was star there when the girls were in Canada with the WXV1 recently there in November. We just narrowly lost out to Canada, but we beat the USA, and we had another historic win against New Zealand, which we weren't expected to do. So our girls have come from division, like the third tier of that, up to Division 1. So yeah, lots of names there now that'll light up the stage in the Six Nations, and hopefully the World Cup as well. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, can we get a prediction from you, Six Nations, women's and men's?
Yeah, I think Ireland hopefully are gonna. I'm not sure they're gonna do the Grand Slam. I do think at this stage, with France winning or losing, excuse me, to England yesterday or on Saturday, and us beating Scotland, I would hope we're gonna win it with Grand Slam. But definitely the three in a row, in a row championships, which hasn't been done before. I think we're favourites to do it in the men. For the women's, unfortunately, we're just a little bit behind England and France. So my prediction would be, and it would be a great finish for us to finish third, I would realistically say England finishing top and France second. And then our goal would be to make a definitely quarter-final of a World Cup. And if we could make a semi-final, that's a really good return for us, because we had some barren years and we had to reinvest and get some money, and we've done that. So I hope it's not too soon for this World Cup. But yeah, quarter-final, semi-final, I'd be very happy with that.
Well, if anyone wants to put any bets on, you've had Lindsay's tips about who she thinks is going to win the Six Nations. We have had a question come in to say, what is your advice for young athletes related to dealing with, living with social media and being aware of your performance online as well as in real life?
That's a tough one. Like, I was even now at the minute, like, if for the Irish team, obviously we've two tens, young tens battling out, and you know, last week was a huge media storm around, you know, who's the better 10, and one plays for Leinster and the other Munster, and just, you know, they're at loggerheads with that, because again, it's very parochial. So you've all those supporters gunning out, and I was thinking to myself, if I was the 21-year-old or 24-year-old looking at all this, you know, media frenzy and people having their say on it, how would I feel? And you really just have to remove yourself. So for any young athlete, those people are not important to you. It's really easy to have your say in comments, and no one lives in your shoes. Like, never comment on anything, you've never walked in anyone else's shoes. And to be in a high performance, high pressurized elite environment or professional environment is a really tough place to be. You've enough critics probably internally with yourself. The important people are your family, your coaches, and your teammates. And with that, like, once you're safe in the knowledge that you're open and honest with yourself, and look, we've all had poor performances. You know, you can only get better. You can only own your mistakes. You know, once you don't make the same mistake twice, even a third time, that's a no-go. You have to be learning. But that's your job as an athlete. But that's, as I said, that's an internal job for you and your coaching staff and your family. Anyone outside of that, they don't have your best interests at heart, and really they mean nothing to you. So I would be absolutely staying away from social media.
Yeah, that seems like wise advice. You choose who's important to you and you just cancel everything else out. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking with you and learning all about your career and your lessons of wisdom. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much, Megan. It was lovely chatting to you, and I hope anyone who was here enjoyed it.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for that very comfortable conversation and very interesting. It's fabulous to hear about your life's experiences, Lindsay. And Megan, you did a lovely job conducting the interview. So thank you both on behalf of the foundation and our listeners today. We greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us. I do want to let everyone know that we hope you will join us for our next event. We are going to be hosting musician David Lowry at the Rivoli on February the 26th. So please, if you're able, come out and join us on that evening. And with that, I want to bid you all a very good evening. And thank you again for joining us.